stressor. So what are the long-term effects of actually targeting that? And that's why there's a lot of research going into biomarkers to be able to biomarkers are to be able to gauge what the actual progress is, because if we're looking at it from a longevity point of view, and my specialty and my current role is that we run the big clinical trials, and the reason for running big clinical trials is that you're trying to generate data from a population level. But if you are looking at it from a longevity point of view, it would be an incredibly expensive, long study that you wouldn't get the results, and the whole longevity space is innovative. Everything's happening at fast pace, and so you need to be able to try and find a way to be able to determine whether it's having an impact. And also, we talked about precision medicine, we need to know kind of if it's having an impact for those particular individuals or groups that have got certain indicators.
My second question, and I'll shut up, I promise.
No. By the way, we would love to hear what.
No,
because you're also in healthcare and.
I promise I'll shut up after.
No, it's a pleasure.
It's for the whole hormones. Mm-hmm. Now we're talking about postmenopause and stuff like that. I am postmenopause. I do talk about it. I'm not ashamed of it. I don't care whoever knows about what.
It's important to talk about it. So thank you for not being shy.
I also have OCD. I tell everybody about it.
I'm sure that too. Yeah.
I'm diagnosed and I take medication for it. I don't care who knows. Right, so I've never taken, I've taken a little bit of HRT, but not much. It didn't work for me very well. And I did get to a point where I was really foggy and exhausted and all that kind of stuff. What turned things around for me was Dr. Sinclair's research, NMN and NR and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And since I've been taking Trinigen and resveratrol together, because I don't trust the source of NMN in this country yet, I just don't, I feel like I was 20 years old. So I'm not sure if hormones are the only way to regain.
I agree. Every human being is different, and that's why precision medicine is so important. I mean, I always love the analogy. Your car has sensors. It will tell you like thousands of kilometers in advance when it needs to be taken care of. We wait until we're like almost like half dead to be like, you know what, I think I need some resurrection here. And so I think that it's, precision medicine is so important because it's looking specifically at you, and then the testing as well, because what works for you will not work for the next person, will not work for the next person as well. So, really fantastic that you took that initiative.
And just to pick up, this is interesting because I think the options for menopause and HRT are really limited, but it's not a field that actually even. My friends are general practitioners, but even in the area, there's not all general practitioners have got that knowledge, right? Some do, and some specialise and have really kind of researched it up, but there's not necessarily that absolute focused knowledge on it. And at the end of the day, general practitioners are dealing with lots.
And I'm a GP. I work in the NHS. I find the concept of precision medicine very, very interesting, but obviously probably out of range from the majority of my patients, certainly. So how would you sort of recommend a scaling up of the service that you very kind of beautifully present to us, because for the majority of my patients, they just won't be able to afford it.
Sure. I'm going to take one step back though, because we talk about precision medicine, you've got to start with the diagnostics first, and then we can diagnose, right? So you have to do it that way. You're absolutely right. It is the domain of those that have more money at the moment. I think what we do at Solice actually, so we actually, there's two parts of the business. There's the concierge service for clients, and we have a consulting arm as well. And actually we supply medicines around the world, and we subsidise supply of medicines to like rural and indigenous communities by some of the profits. So we're doing the little bit that we can, but also trying to get partners, regional governments to do that as well. Ultimately, we want it to be available to everyone. It will not be for the moment. And what you have, though, you have at the other end of the scale, so you've got Solice over here. There's a fantastic platform called Healthily, and actually, funny enough, we're helping to fundraise for them. They're doing exactly what we're doing, but automating it, using algorithms, using data, right? So that's more for the mass end. So I think that is where it's really going to go. And you're having lots of these platforms that spring up. We are at the other end. We don't want thousands. It's a very hands-on, white-gloved service. But we do believe that this kind of precision medicine and the diagnostic test should be available to everyone. You've got glycanage. You can order it online and get it sent home to you wherever you are in the UK. You could be on the Isle of Skye, for example.
Or here.
In the world.
Right now, right here.
No, exactly. All right here, for example.
Now we're going to do it.
A lot of the hacks are free, so it's a knowledge thing of explaining to people about intermittent fasting and timing of day.
But the diagnostic test, you can't do that, or you do have to engage with it.
I think what you say about the knowledge gap being probably the biggest problem in our sort of modern society is absolutely sort of, spot on. The problem is working as I do, there's such a large group of people that basically live hand to mouth. They don't have the time, they don't have the wherewithal, they don't have the knowledge to sort of think about how they can be as well as we're all here. We all have sort of an interest in it, and we probably all would be able to afford certain tests, etc. But a lot of people just don't have that capacity in their quite hard lives. So I wonder how we can use some of these ideas that we're talking about today and sort of transmit them across the population to change the culture. Because as you say, the fitness epidemic, paying lots of money to go to a gym, that it's not going to make us. It's not going to reverse aging. It's not going to arrest aging. It's not going to turn us into a well population. So we've got to really think about some sort of sea change in terms of.
Do you not think it's a bit scary as well? Sorry to interject that, but I feel like there's almost information overload. I got sick the other day, and I went onto WebMD, and it said go to the A&E, and I had my daughter was like, oh, Mum, have a look at this. And it was ridiculous. They were trying to send me to the A&E, and it was. I'm sorry. I think you can scare people, and there is choice paralysis. Yes. You can get them. They can become more paranoid, right? And neurotic. So I think information's great, but knowing what to do with it and how precise is it?
Exactly. You need qualified result. There's a big difference between information and wisdom, and that's the difference. Is you need to find the people who, it isn't just some random blog on the internet, which might be amazing and absolutely on target with all the science, but how does the ordinary person know that? They don't, and it's just an overwhelming tsunami of search results, whatever you're looking for. And I'm doing a project at the moment with a company that supply all the rail workers for Network Rail, and so these are all guys who work on the railway tracks and stuff like that, and they have a large suicide prevention program because there's a lot of very serious mental health problems within that workforce, and those guys don't talk about their, it's very kind of old school, that kind of environment. And we're just doing a program called Smart Wellness Accelerator, which I did the first session last week, of just 2-minute videos that they have to watch once a week. They have to watch a 2-minute video about a hack and then try and do it in their day. And then the following week we see who's tried it and who hasn't. And we've kind of made it into a bit of a something that they can talk about, so it's not too sciencey. It's a really interesting challenge. No one's even got time to watch a 2-minute video. This is the world we're living in. It's how do you make something so easy that people will engage in it, so that they learn something that could actually have a transformational effect. Because if it's just a tiny thing that you do that improves your sleep quality or whatever, and you're doing that every single day, then throughout your lifetime, that's quite a major impact.
And Dr. Manson-Brown wants to chime in.
And I'm just going to answer, so there's an initiative at the minute, and I'm just blanking on the actual name, but it's looking at kind of this health span element, so putting the years into your life, or putting the health into your years at the latest stage. And it's an initiative that's been run by Tina Woods, who's connecting, her background is that she is lobbying Parliament, and she's speaking to the health minister and trying to get all of the different stakeholders involved, so corporate, banking, finance, the academic side of things, politics, etc., to really make the UK government commit to finding ways to actually expand the healthy, it's not expanding lifespan, but expanding a healthy life at the end, as you're getting into the later parts of your decades, let's say. And it's such a big conundrum, but that's exactly their point, is this big inequity and inequality that's kind of going to potentially be posed by people being able to access healthcare. And the other thing is that a lot of the diagnostics that's taking place at the minute is kind of in the first instance, they'll always be that more expensive, but the more it gets used, and the more the ways they will be able to kind of find more efficient ways to process and analyze the data. And we're talking about analyzing data. it will get cheaper, but it is about education.
Also,
that's
good business
sense. APPG.
APPG.
So, and actually, you can join that if you're interested in that. Because the equity thing is, I'm not sure that they're going to get to that for a while, because the end point of that work is a business index and how businesses will deal with longevity, and I think it will be a while before that impacts.
It's business at the minute, but they are wanting to look at healthcare.
I wonder if I could just briefly challenge us equalising precision with expensive.
By the way, I just wanted to mention that, Professor Barker, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Well,
Because you're also in precision medicine.
The only relevant thing is I created a company called MetAdvice, which applies artificial intelligence for precision medicine as a point of care. The thing is, I mean, artificial intelligence isn't as intelligent as we are.
Yes.
But
Not yet.
Yes, they're
what
working
it
on it.
can do is deal with multi-parametric inputs.
Yeah.
Right? So, and I think particularly for our GP friend there, I mean, if you have 8 minutes to take into account all of the different things that could influence people's care, so the system can suggest, we've got a system that can suggest what's right for that patient, what to focus on first, and then within what you focus on first, what the choices are that particular profile suggests. But I've encountered this around the world. When you use the word precision medicine, people say, really expensive cancer medicines. It doesn't need to be that way. It's the way we use what we have that matches the profile of the patient. Sorry, then.
And it gets smarter and smarter, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Every time someone uses it,
Machine learning,
it gets smarter and smarter. So that's exactly the kind of platform. I just want to go back to prevention again, though. You know, it's very. Oh, sorry. Oh goodness.
No, please.
It's really costly. All these chronic diseases, if we prevent them, it's great for you as the individual, it's great for you as a family, and it's great for the NHS and everybody else.
And that is the
It
big
makes good sense.
Chris Whitty going across into that new role now, across into really focusing on prevention, because it's otherwise it's doomed. I mean, how on earth can we continue on this trajectory? It has to start looking at seriously at preventative measures.
I want
Can
to
I just say something about there's a growing movement of arts and health, which I'm involved in, where we're talking about social prescribing by GPs and link workers, and that's a kind of a way, I guess, to bring it to everyone.
Thank you.
And I'd love to just make, just a point to that as well. And I think that one is to get to the mindset though as well, right? So what is the trigger? So I have, an uncle that I can, talk to the cows come home about what he should do and change. And he's just looking at me and he's like, it is what it is, I'm not gonna change. And he's had 4 heart surgeries, so I'm like, borderline, but I've tried. So one is that sort of finding that pain point so that you can speak to and you will know your patients. One is maybe portraying, think about the money you are saving in later years that you can actually invest in. Another one might be the motivation to have more time with their grandchildren. So I think it's on an individual basis, really talking to them. And then what we were also mentioning as well, but I think it's just having a protocol. And you can say, pick what you like out of this, try it, test it, see if you notice a difference. Do 2 weeks of sleeping, going to bed at 10 o'clock instead of 2 a.m. and see if you notice a difference as well. Just making it easy and just little small steps, because I think when people, it's a momentum thing, right? When people start realizing, oh wow, I actually I don't have brain fog today anymore because I went to bed earlier, for example. I'm curious to try something else. It's a lot of game mindset, trying to reprogram that a little bit as well. But there are free materials out there. What I would say though is that when you pay attention. So I think if people are so spoiled in terms of everything is free and this and the other, and they're like, oh, I'm not going to go.
That's well in this country. I really do. When one pays, one expects a certain level of
correct.
service.
And you pay attention as well, and you do it.
That's how it works. I'm a dentist, and I always tell patients that I charge them £100 to teach them how to brush.
But they pay attention, right?
Well, they do pay attention. They pay money, and they obviously have to
They're the best toothbrushes out there.
The GPs do, in effect, offer a personalised service in that every single individual is an individual, and you have to treat every single, it's just that we don't have the time,
of course,
to enact the change that we probably want to. And there's also, if you speak to somebody and say, oh, why don't you spend 2 weeks doing this, and telling them to do that, and then actually doing it, and then coming back and reporting to you, that's all.
It's like that gamification, right? How do you make it fun? How do you make it...
If you could have access to all these fantastic tests, it would be amazing.
But it's human behaviour and about engagement. That's slightly different, right? Okay, we know that it causes lung cancer to smoke, right? A lot of people that do smoke are not stupid, right? And they see these graphic images. Now, I was working with basically a Fitbit for vapors. It was called Air. And it was a fantastic halfway house because it gave them the knowledge. It told them when they smoked. Were they a serial smoker? Did they wake up at 6 a.m. and smoke straight away? Or did they pick it up on a Friday afternoon when they went down the pub? And with that information, it empowered them to then go, oh, can we nudge you down? Can we reduce the amount of nicotine all the way down to 0? So that is about rewarding, recognition, motivating. And that comes into, that's the cerebral side of it. Just having knowledge on its own doesn't mean you're going to do anything with it.
Exactly.
And I do want to just say, I feel like I'm the bad commercial person in here. We do lobby. We charge for service because it is very high touch, and I wish we could offer it to everyone. I truly believe that we will be able to do that. I mean, you saw my quote about saying there's an inequity with access to healthcare and technology and things like that. So that is one of my personal missions. But we work with our corporate clients and we lobby the insurance companies because it makes good business sense for them as well. If we are helping to prevent chronic diseases, they don't have to pay out so much later on. Right? And also it's increased productivity if the corporates advise, provide, sleep hacks, well not hacks, but just think, little things regarding mindfulness, making sure they sleep enough. They've got good, access to good mental health techniques and things like that. So.
It's beautiful. Speaking of marketing and business people, I know we have one Forbes 30 under 30 marketingist who wanted to ask, and he was like, no. Don't embarrass me. Who was patiently waiting to ask this question, and I just really wanted to make sure that he has a space. And you both, by the way, should have a chat later on how to capture that attention of your patients, for 2 minutes or more, because I know he has some hacks out there. So please, Christian.
Hi everyone. I'm Christian. So I'm founder of a company called AudioMob. It's a fast-growing tech startup. And as being, a simple male, as Nina mentioned earlier, no, honestly, it's been an amazing conversation, and I've been learning a lot, and I'm shocked at how much I don't know, to be honest. I don't know how relevant this question is, but even when it came to the wording of our job posts, right, we're in a male-dominated ecosystem, advertising, technology, and gaming. It's like 95% male-driven from the founders and the C-levels, VPs, etc. And we changed the language of our job posts, and now we have 50% women, which is great. We want to keep that up.
What did you do?
I'll talk to the
You should post
recruiters.
the two differences side by side. Actually, that'd be really interesting to see.
I actually do need to look at that because we've got a female recruitment team and our head of people as well. It's going really well. This is more of a question for the room as well as all the panelists. What support did you wish you had along your careers that you didn't receive? Because I'm just noticing that I'm a male, my co-founders are male, the whole industry is male, and we have a very specific kind of view as to how we think we should help employees. But with 50% women, we're employing people from all walks of life, with families, post-menopause, pre-menopause, people just out of graduation. And even, I think Nina was mentioning a couple of weeks ago, companies are starting to provide support such as helping people fund the freezing of their eggs that are more career driven.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to notice that there's very different worries for different gendered people. And I want to make sure that we provide support so we kind of level the playing field. So that's the general question. What support did you wish you had?
This. Truly. This, conversation, communication, knowledge. The ability for me to cherry pick and meet people that have potentially similar worries to me that I can learn from. Literally this, and I think it's a fantastic event. I've learned
that kind of open environment now is that's what's changing, isn't it? I think that employers have this open door. Everyone's talking about everything, and it's very different. That even 10 years ago, the last 5 years has been dramatic change, which is good.
I think just the awareness from the employer's side that there are such things as periods, as menopause, as premenstrual tension, and that people, they just have certain behavior changes. People may not be at their best at that time, and people just be aware. If I just knew that there was this awareness and people would understand, I'd be more focused on trying not to hide it, or trying not to sort of still be the same as I was when I didn't have it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Just knowing that the company is aware and therefore the people are aware, it just makes me feel a lot more comfortable. So.
And I guess I would challenge you to think about, asking, literally you could do a survey, what can I do to enable you to work at your best. So maybe somebody needs to take like a midday nap, and I think that started in Japan. They have these like sleeping rooms and things as well. And for a percentage of your teams, right, this could be an amazing way to just recharge and be at a whole nother productivity in the afternoon. Whereas other people work really well at nighttime, so there's also like the analysis you can do your type of circadian rhythm and you're naturally to you as well. So allowing people that flexibility to be themselves, to help them even understand themselves, because we come, I think, typically from a society where you assume everyone thinks in a certain way. But if you say, we know that everyone's different, and actually here are some cool tests you can do and things that you would encourage that from an employer perspective, and what a dream place to work, because the people are learning about themselves as well, and then they know that they have the freedom to be more creative. And like, just think about retention and loyalty. People are not going to want to leave there, because you're almost like biohacking your thing, but people can decide themselves and be the best version of themselves.
And there's a lot of push, but there's a push towards the 4-day week now as well. A big shift towards that. But when you're looking at that and looking at how people are not eating properly and are eating very late, and they don't have time to cook, and they don't because the day lasts so long, that in my mind we're almost better to rather than do that day is to just shorten all the days so that we're finishing work earlier, so then we do have time to cook and we do have time to eat earlier, and that is going to help our sleep quality and everything else, rather than having one day off that will just end up being filled with whatever,
trying to do everything else,
and then you're still trying to do everything and eating late and not sleeping properly in the other days.
Well, I just want to say, first of all, it's refreshing that you even looked at that. So I think that's a big bonus. So I think that's also great that you're proactively thinking about that. I've got a couple of comments. One of them is about this openness with regards to kind of there's not one bit. So that was very much in my career, and especially in plastic surgery, you had to fit this very much kind of a box that was, aggressive, confident, and I noticed my training was a lot of my female consultants actually were pretty aggressive and like the humiliation on the ward round as well, because their thoughts were, well, that's what happened to me, so I should be doing the same to the other female trainees, rather than going, actually that didn't work, that was actually pretty unpleasant, let's actually look at this more holistically. The other thing is that the pandemic has opened up this flexibility from a working perspective. I work for a big corporation, and that's actually been something that's changed with this kind of mindset, and it's been it's double-edged, because there's been some challenges with working at home, that there's had to be homeschooling, etc. But a lot of my team and a lot of my team members have said, actually this has really helped me to be able to better manage my day. So now I go off and do X in the morning, I've got much more relaxed ability to take the children to school, for example, or I can go and do X, Y, and Z. And that doesn't just apply to women, but I have definitely had that kind of stronger feedback from a lot of the women in my team.
Just really, really quickly, I think for me it's about choice. I think if somebody may want a 4-day week and somebody may not, and I think one is to ensure that there are community groups that people can access. So for example, there's a group called Hormona for people to talk about their hormones, and that's, not pre-teen in a work environment, but it could be premenopause or peri or whatever. And then just offering them and letting people choose, because what somebody wants, it may not be what the other person wants.
Thank you very much.
So I think definitely every company needs to think about menopause, because a lot of women are lost in that period of time. I think UK statistics is 20%, but other surveys say 40% of women don't upgrade their career or leave. And if in another survey, 9 out of 10 women said it impacts their work. And you probably, if you look around, you will find some friends who've actually been impacted, if they will be able to share. But it's actually tragic how often it happens. And that as a normal thing that every company offers should be key, because it's actually very simple. It's awareness, it's providing the right support, and then helping women go through that period. Another one would be fertility. It's very expensive, unfortunately, but every woman, from a career perspective, does think about their biological clock, and that does govern their decisions on what they're going to do when in life. If there was a way, and it's not ideal, the solutions are imperfect, the success rate is not great, but it is something that gives a little bit more peace of mind and awareness, although it is expensive, so you to be similar to Google and then go into that direction. Not everybody can. And then after that, also childcare, because a lot of women leave in that period, and the workplace was designed by men. So children were never taken into account. There are many other workplaces where women are more like marketplaces in Africa, where it's perfectly normal for you to bring your children to work. And I think that needs to change here in a way that there is, like now, if you go to a gym, sometimes you have a daycare and you just drop off your child and you go do a workout. If that's something you can do at work as well, you're going to lose a lot less women in that period where they have to make a choice, because it'll be easier to make a choice to continue their career than to drop off and look after kids full time.
And also for retention, so I actually know a company in Germany that has, they had 70% women, or if not more, and they noticed that there was always somebody was late or they were missing meetings, what was happening, some sort of issue around childcare, the nanny didn't come or whatever, and so he just decided, you know what, I'm going to open up a nursery, and literally did this, and all of a sudden, you know, plus if your children are that you're so much more happy, you can drop in if you need to or not, so, you know, little things like this, thinking outside of the box, that just adds such value that you just have such happy staff and longer retention as well. So
I think the gender pay gap is still something that, you know, I'm so surprised that it still exists, and there are some kind of logical, not reasonable, but logical reasons for some of that gap. But I see even in my own team that the women, they ask for a lot less money, they expect a lot less money than males of their equivalent experience and stature. And for me, that is not acceptable. And so really digging the surface and identifying why women are devaluing their own expertise and skills compared with men of their equivalents.
And then coaching, right? So proactively
Coaching,
doing
yeah,
something
mentoring,
about it.
coaching.
Do you coach the females to say
Yeah,
they should
yeah,
ask for
yeah,
more?
I mentor.
Really?
I mentor, yeah.
Great, yeah.
I love it. Before moving to the next question, when I was applying to executive MBA studies, I'm currently I'm studying one of the programs. When they were pitching me the course, they were like, you know, it will boost your self-esteem. I was like, you don't know me. But thank you very much. I didn't choose that program, but yeah, you know, we have to ask for more. I want to pass on the invisible microphone to Dr. Avi Roy, who's actually in the longevity space. He's one of the reasons why I'm not in the longevity space. I'm trying to hang out with people who are, to just know how to hack myself into being my better self. So Dr. Roy from Oxford, please.
I'm Avi, by the way. Stop. So, Richard didn't say other things that he does.
Yes.
So he did CASME for his sins at Oxford and UCL.
Will you stop talking about me? She was like, I've known this man for 10 years and he
They need
doesn't
to do
look a year older.
What do you do? Tell us.
I don't know, but the question is that inequities. So we were looking at clinical trials, not just in developed countries, but in developing countries as well, and developing health spaces. And the inequities with women, they pass on to clinical trials. Yep. Everybody here knows how few women are used, because it's the antithesis of what Nikolina was talking about, that men are simple, so they're used in clinical trials because you get simple linear results, but because of the complexity of women. But what is shameful for me as a biomedical scientist to just recently realize, hanging out with Nikolina and other colleagues who started Gamito, the company, is that what was spoken earlier, which is the accelerated rate of aging of this organ, which is the ovaries, which begins very early, and it has a linear progression of acceleration, but nobody really uses that in clinical trial. Neither, until now, do they use the menopause as a marker of looking at the aging process. The reason why I'm invoking these things is that these are very short-term markers. One of the things that the field of longevity science or anti-aging, or whatever you want to call it, in snake oil versus clinical trial, where we have been suffering, is that you can pick and choose your primary and secondary indications. And we don't have a standardized way like we have for testing COVID vaccine, which is regardless of which company you are, you test for the same vector, for the same clinical trial endpoint. Yep. We don't have that. Whereas, what the question was, is there a standardized way that we can actually capture that accelerated rate of aging of ovaries in a clinical marker endpoint? for a primary indication, because then, regardless of what clinical trial we're doing, as long as there are women participating in that trial, and at least 50% should be women in all clinical trials, unless it's for prostate or some things like that. So are you guys seeing this happen? And if so, how do we make that happen? Which is use the ovary as a clinical trial marker to see if we can actually slow down the rate of aging, or if some drugs helped with, or methods, lifestyle interventions, help with slowing down the rate of aging.
We don't have a good biomarker for aging of ovaries. That's the biggest problem. You have the AMH marker, which is how many eggs you can freeze in a cycle. It's very good for that, but it doesn't tell you about egg quality, and it doesn't really tell you about chance of getting pregnant or fertility. It does decline for time, but it's not a good marker for ovarian aging. We're missing biomarkers. That's the key thing of the field. We're working on a biomarker for menopause. Now, we don't know how it yet relates to ovarian aging because we haven't done any work in fertility, but we do see that we catch perimenopause very well. So eventually this will be an accessible test as a diagnostic for perimenopause, because right now you don't diagnose it. You don't have a good, because hormones fluctuate all the time. It's like looking at glucose when you're looking at diabetes. You're not going to see the long-term trend. Well, we can see the long-term trend of estrogen levels over a couple of months. So that would be something that's accessible and that could help with all of these multiple appointments you go now, because you still have a cycle. And then if somebody asks you if it's menopause, first there's not enough education about it, so all of the symptoms can be something else. So a lot of times you're just diagnosed with depression or fibromyalgia, or you have palpitations, you see 7 different specialists, nobody tells you it's to do with your hormones. So I think having a better marker for menopause is a great standpoint, and we need to see how this relates in longevity trials to ovaries, but then also finding a biomarker for quality of eggs and actual fertility.
Medics do tend to use FSH as a marker for menopause. So FSH more than 30 millimoles per litre on 2 separate occasions. I think it's 2 months apart. So there is that.
Well, if you look at NICE guidelines, they took off FSH post age 45 because it's not very accurate. You can have a very favorable score and still be in perimenopause, and it will change with the cycle. And then if you tell the perimenopause, where cycle may be a bit less regular, to test her FSH, she has to test a certain date of a cycle. And then if she doesn't have that cycle for a month or 2, she's waiting 2 months to figure out what's going on. Well, with something that's looking at a more stable side, it doesn't matter what day of the month you test, you're looking at a trend over the last 3 months. And also we see it respond to therapy. So the way we want to develop it is a companion diagnostic, so you can see if the therapy is actually working for that individual woman, because right now you don't really guide HRT apart from symptoms, and it's a trial and error. You give it, you see if she responds, but there's no objective way to guide therapy. And then also it's predictive of long-term health outcomes. So you can actually see what is the long-term impact of how you're treating your patient, instead of just are her symptoms getting better, and on a more superficial level, is she feeling better.
I guess we're running a little bit out of time, but
yes,
I think the broad point that we lack good biomarkers that give us rapid feedback for all the things you folks are talking about, which I'm guessing are going to, in fact, be gender specific in some particular cases. There's a huge amount of effort in the field on therapies and on understanding the processes of aging, the 9 factors and so on. But what we lack is something that we each as individuals can see, actually what I'm doing is making a difference day to day. And the doctors can say, yes, that what I prescribed has made a difference over the last few months. So I think that we need a lot more effort in that area. We have continuous glucose monitoring now, which is going to move from diabetics, type 1 diabetics, type 2 diabetics, to the rest of us, so that we can see the impact of eating late or whatever it is.
I'm just wearing one. I can show you if you want.
So just to go back to your point as well, the Buck Institute have actually set up under Dr. Jennifer Garrison a whole initiative and program to bring funding in to better understand ovarian aging, because despite the fact that there has been such significant billions of dollars invested into the longevity space, ovarian aging is one of the areas that's been least focused on, and so I have to say I'm so impressed with her work that she's doing, and she's coming to present next week at the Science of Aging. So I think there's a whole initiative now being able to better understand it.
Yeah, she wants to eradicate the menopause because it's not clinically necessary. So I don't know if you know with, this is what she's working on, her moonshot idea. She's brilliant. So
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
Before wrapping this up, I want to be respectful of everyone's times, and I promise that there's gonna be some blood drawn today. We joked about that at the beginning, and we wanted to show the CGM, right? Just real quickly.
It's a really cool thing. My name is Veronica, by the way, and this is a continuous glucose monitor, a really pretty sensor, which you can tap with your phone, and you can read your blood glucose levels.
Yeah.
Where did you get it from?
You can
Abbott Laboratories, the Libra,
Yeah, Libra.
links, the two.
In the US,
Did
by
you
the way.
set it under your skin or is it
Yeah, it's a tiny needle.
Doesn't hurt.
And you wear it for 14 days, you can measure your glucose continuously, and it gives you a lot of information about your metabolism and how your body reacts to what you're eating.
And it's not just food, which I think is the beauty of it. So there's a brilliant startup out of San Francisco called Levels Health, and not only in the US at the moment, but it actually shows you your response to exercise, to sleep as well, to obviously what you're drinking. So I thought sweet potatoes were great, and my glucose just shot through the roof as well. But just to bring back to a point that you made, I think that the interesting part of technology in this is actually bringing all the data points together. So for example, I had a continuous glucose monitor on, and my Oura ring was telling me I'm waking up at night, and I'm thinking, what's going on? I'm doing my intermittent fasting, my blood glucose though, because of the Levels Health, so I was able to see that I was hypoglycemic. And so I was having a cortisol response because my body was kicking my liver into action to produce enough energy. And it took a functional medicine specialist to actually put two and two together. I do not think there's many people on the planet that would look at the continuous glucose monitor results together with the Oura Ring sleep tracker to figure out actually that what's going on. And there was a beautiful, simple response. A solution to it was, almond butter before bed, just to keep the blood sugar levels stable overnight. So such an easy game changer. Obviously sugar-free, no palm oil, etc. But finding that precision medicine thing. So sleep quality has just completely changed because of it. So so it's bringing it together, I think, which is the beauty.
And if you're interested in the topic, I would also highly recommend to follow Glucose Goddess. She's a great blogger. I follow her on Instagram sometimes for the daily tips on how to keep my sugar low. But before we wrap it up, I just really wanted to ask Nikoina, if you may, please. I was poking her the entire time if she would do this, because we joked around at the beginning that maybe it would be interesting to see, what is glycan age and how does it work, what does it do? And another question, while you're maybe able to get things prepared, I don't know, Maila, did you want to do the test?
I'll do it, sure.
Yeah,
I did this last week.
Yeah. Whoever you, I can be your rabbit.
Both.
It's fine. So and also, why nobody told us about perimenopause?
Well, actually, I think everybody in this room knows.
Now we do.
Yes, but it's because menopause is diagnosed at the end point. So right now, and even therapy is given at the end point, which is 12 months after a woman hasn't had a cycle, plus 1 day she's officially in menopause, and that's where the guidelines start. Everything before, she can have her hormones declining for up to a decade. And nobody's actually studied perimenopause properly. You don't have any gold standard. You can compare it to see if you're... It's actually a field that everybody's guessing. So if you talk to different clinicians, somebody would say, oh, women's estrogens are quite high still in perimenopause. Another clinician would say, no, overall they're declining. You have to give her different type of therapy. So there's all of these different opinions because we don't have any objective biomarkers or research. So that needs to change, because a lot of times it's just called something else. It's called depression, it's called a different disease, and then you spend years on the wrong type of therapy. And no matter who you are, profile of income, for example, Oprah was misdiagnosed. She had palpitations, went to the world's best cardiologist, and but was put on heart medication because of the palpitations, and they couldn't find a problem. And actually it was her hormones, and she then picked up a book and learned that that's a symptom of perimenopause. So it's a space that needs to develop in medicine in all ways for it to be better known.
I don't know.
I was just going to add, we talk about knowledge, but the amount of times we have clients that have been misdiagnosed and they just think that they're depressed or something like that, and it is about hormones. So it's not just us, the patients, it's also the doctors in the NHS. Right? They need to be educated a little bit better about all of these things across the board, and a lot of them are male, actually. So because they don't understand about it, and maybe there's no interest. I don't know what it is, but we see a lot of clients that come to us saying, it's taken us 7 years to get a diagnosis and we're still just being given Valium or whatever it is, you know. And then we look at their hormones and then they're fine after, you know, a few months.
So what does like an age do, and can you show it on us?
Yeah, so we can do the test. We can do it here. It's actually quite a complex science. So it's actually the last 3 decades of my father's research. We published over 200 papers in some of the leading journals and looked at over 150,000 people for up to 3 decades. And then we modeled this aging clock, and it's post-translational modifications in proteins. So if you're looking at any impact from genes, epigenome, this is the top layer. So this is combining all of these impacts with your current environment, and that it's also specific to the immune system, because we look at antibodies, so it's the adaptive immune system, it's the immune system you build for life, and the genetic influence. Now we know, so we did this nice study with Clint UK, it's just going to be published. We know that the genetic influence on your glycan age is 40%, and then 60% is what you can change. So everybody can change their glycan age. And we know it's very relevant to long-term health because some of the different structures we look at are predictive of certain diseases, which we still can't report commercially due to regulation, but we can tell you your biological age. And we know that broadly, an acceleration of the clock is predictive of hospitalization from many different causes within a 10-year time frame in a study we did with Edinburgh. So it's very valuable. If you move it in the different direction, you could be saving yourself, giving yourself extra years of healthy life. And it's a nice biomarker to evaluate all of these different therapies, because first in trials, we need to see are they actually impacting a meaningful underlying marker of aging. And then if everything you're doing personally, because you're an individual, so even if something works in a trial, doesn't mean it's going to work for you personally, to see if what you are doing, from going to the gym, from whatever these daily behaviors to any therapies you're trying, if they're actually adding or taking away, because we're all individual, and something that is positive for one person could be actually causing you harm.
Thank you.
2 guinea pigs?
Yeah, unless someone wants to take my place.
We do have a few boxes and a code today, because we still have a Women's Day discount. So if you pick up one of those, we have a 20% until the end of the month.
Who doesn't love those?
If you're afraid of blood, it will be like 4 drops of blood. So if you're scared, I just want to warn you now.
And also maybe to mention Dr. Raffaele, who is 61 years old and he has a biological age of 20, 21.
Yeah, so his immune system is like a 22-year-old in our biobank.
So when you do the test and you realize what your biological age is, do you prescribe specific things to do so that you reduce it?
Yes. So when the scientists made it, they thought, oh, this is just this brilliant test you do, you get a number and you get all of this complicated science and it's beneficial for you. Then as we turned it into something commercial, we have a whole support system. It starts with a consultation. It's led by our scientists, but they have additional training in nutrition, sports science, so it can really go further than just what we know from studies. They can combine it with their expertise. So you're paired with somebody who's most in line with your health profile, and it's optional. If you don't fill in the health profile, you get a general specialist. And then you can also validate it. So you can do a test before and after. You can follow advice and then see if that's actually had an impact or it hasn't and something should be changed. So we help you tweak that process as well.
So do you have a case study on your father?
Yes, we have many case studies on the site. There's lots of successful case studies.
On your dad, though,
and my father is one of the most unsuccessful case studies. So unfortunately, he found it. He knows exactly what he means. So he has all the data.
We want to know what he did.
Well, he's been measured for 7-8 years now, and he's 20 years older biologically. And first time when he learned that, he lost a lot of weight. First, he started exercising a lot. He was hiking for 4 hours a day and went on a strict diet, lost 10 kilograms, and the clock didn't move. It actually got 2 years older. And he was doing it this summer, so he thought, oh, maybe it's the sun, because I was hiking it, maybe it's the sun. Later, when we did the studies with exercise, we learned that over-exercise actually completely dysregulates your immune system. So what happens often in the gym, you go in, you overdo it, you have a negative response, you drop out.
Cancel that subscription.
And you keep paying the subscription. So that's quite, and there's other studies, so not just what we see with the biomarker. So we see if it's adequate, moderate exercise with enough recovery, you can shift it backwards. But if it's over-exercise, you have accelerated aging. And there was a nice review paper that looked at all the strength training studies done to date, and they saw that up to 90 minutes of strength training per week reduced all-cause mortality by 10 to 20%, but over 90 minutes of strength training per week continuously increased mortality, all-cause mortality by 10%. So there's a dose in exercise which is good and which is bad.
Did you look at, sorry to interrupt, Tabata training? Because it has a very specific impact on some chronic conditions like diabetes.
We didn't. So that's going into different types of exercise. That would be next step, so we can see what has certain impacts. Back to his story. So since he did that experiment, he gave up. He just continued. Like, we monitored him for years. He just kept aging a year per year, and he was still 20 years older. Recently, because of Tim Spector, so he has these cool scientist friends who are doing all these healthy things. Now he's trying kombucha supplement.
Wow.
Because we're doing a study with him. He tried the glucose monitors. He was perfect. Like, his problem was not a glucose response, it's obesity and different things. But he's now doing something he would never do. He would never drink it, but there's like a little powder you can try. And so he's trying that. And we're doing a study with metformin and rapamycin. So once we have the conclusion of the study, if we have seen strong scientific proof, he may try some of these things. So he's waiting for the magic pill. He's not a lifestyle guy. He likes to eat rubbish. And he's one of those late adopters. So you have the people who are the healthiest, they're the easiest to change. They're the most proactive. And then you have people who are starting to change, which are also, they have very positive response, and then you have the people who are just unwilling to change in terms of lifestyle. And no matter what you tell them, if you tell them, you're gonna have a heart attack in 5 years, they'll be like, I like my cake.
Well, it's not happening today, so it's 5 years away. So today I'll eat cake.
Or as my uncle says, why should I kill myself to live? Well, I think that's the stupidest thing on the planet.
That sounds like my uncle that didn't want to do any before heart surgeries.
You should introduce them to each other.
No, but not.
It's just ridiculous, and he can hardly move. He's got diabetes, heart disease, everything. Anyway.
So thank you very, very much. I see nobody wants to go, and we still have some bubbly. I'm sorry?
Hey, I don't want to go.
Hi, neither do I. You want a question?
Oh, no, the test, I thought.
Are you into volunteer?
Okay. Sure. So I'll give my spot then to you, okay? That's right. Oh, you want to see the test, how it's done?
No, to try it, yeah.
She would do
Yeah,
it.
sure. So maybe I'll give one.
Do mine. I have one at home.
Oh.
Nina reached out to me, I don't even know how long, and sent one to me. It's been in my cupboard. So you guys go ahead.
Yeah, I've done them and it's not that bad. It's just don't be scared.
Amit, please.
So I'll give mine.
Yeah. May I say my
So can you? And I just really want to encourage everyone. I just want to let everyone know. First of all, I just really want to thank our esteemed guests for joining us today for a wonderful conversation. I personally learned a lot. I'm not letting you go tonight. I don't know what were your plans, but we're staying for another glass of lovely. And I know that in the audience we have quite a few fabulous people. Not everyone properly introduced themselves. We have medical providers, people in marketing and professors and other people in the field. So please do stick around, and I just really want to give a round of applause to our guests. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.